What is going on YouTube? Alright, so this is going to be a response video for my man Joe, Silverjackify. What's up, brother? So, he wanted us to make a top 5 or top 10 of just pretty much anything we wanted. Now, usually this would sound pretty easy, but I've made a lot of top 5 videos. You know, I've made my top 5 baseball autographs, top 5 baseball cards, top 5 relic cards, top 5 minor league cards. So I've done quite a few top 5 videos. So I figured I'd change it up a little bit today and do my top 5 boxing autographs. Now, boxing is a small portion of my collection. Most of my collection is baseball, so I don't have that much boxing memorabilia. But I do have some, and I do have, a few boxing autographs. So today I figured I'd do my top 5. So I'm going to consider these two number 5 on my list. The boxing glove to the left is signed by Sugar Ray Leonard. The boxing glove to the right is signed by Tommy the Hitman Hearns. I had met them both in person. You know, I picked up these gloves from Walmart and brought them with me and got them both to sign them. I have them facing each other. Those two had 2 epic fights together, and back in, the early 80s and stuff, man, these were some of the guys that ruled the middleweight and welterweight divisions. Guys like Roberto Duran and Marvin Hagler, along with Leonard and Hearns were huge when I was young. And, it was awesome to meet them both in person. And you know what I also think it's funny is both of them kind of have a little smiley face on their signature. I don't know if that one's smiling so much, but I thought that was pretty interesting. So yeah, this pair of gloves signed by Sugar Ray Leonard and Tommy the Hitman Hearns are number 5 on my list. Number 4 is my Mike Tyson autograph Punch-Out Nintendo game. Everybody remembers this game, man. Back when we were kids, this game was the shit. And this was another one I'd gotten in person and had Mike Tyson sign my old copy of Mike Tyson's Punch-Out I had from when I was a kid. And that was really cool. Growing up, man, he was the heavyweight division. He was the king in the 80s. There was nobody like him, during his time, really. It's kind of too bad the way his career ended up, but like I said, in the 80s, he just looked unstoppable. He really did. So I got to meet him a few years back, had him sign this game. So that is definitely a fun piece. It's a nice conversation piece. People come over, they love seeing this. So this Mike Tyson signed NES card is number 4 on my list. Number 3 is my Jake LaMotta signed corner pad. Now this thing is pretty badass, and I'll tell you what, this looks beautiful, in the corner of the room. It really ties everything in together. So I'd gotten this some time back, and it's authenticated by PSA, and Jake LaMotta was, one of the biggest names back in the 40s and the 50s in the middleweight division. And really the only guy who actually ever beat Sugar Ray Robinson in his prime. Anybody else who ever defeated Robinson defeated him way after he was over the hill. And everybody considers him pound for pound the greatest fighter of all time. So it definitely says something for LaMotta. And he had 2 nicknames, the Bronx Bull and the Raging Bull. And if you haven't seen the movie Raging Bull, you gotta check that out, man. That movie's sick. But yeah, this is badass, and this is actually the largest autograph in my collection. Most autographs are pretty small. Little baseballs or on cards or photo or something. But I'm gonna give you a little scale. Like, look at my hand. Next to this, that is a very large autograph, which is very, very cool. So, yep, this Jake LaMotta signed corner pad is number 3 on my list. Number 2 is my Jack Dempsey signed photograph, the Manasseh Mauler. Jack Dempsey was heavyweight champion of the world from 1919 to 1926. And back in the Roaring 20s, guys like him and Babe Ruth were gods. They were it. And this, as you can see, is authenticated by PSA. And I got this at a really good price. At least I thought so. I had picked this up some years back for $95. Now, if you go out and look for Jack Dempsey signed photos authenticated by PSA. You'll see the prices. They're a lot more than 95 bucks. So I was very happy to pick this up. You know, one of my favorite fighters of all time. You watch some footage. Go on YouTube and put in Jack Dempsey versus Jess Willard. You're going to see a fight, man, a crazy fight that you're just never going to see a fight like that in a boxing ring these days, to say the least. But this is definitely a cool piece from a really old-time fighter, one of the greatest. And this Jack Dempsey signed photo is number 2 on my list. And number 1 is my Joe Louis cut signature, the Brown Bomber, one of the greatest heavyweight champions of all time. And you can see this is a cut signature that's mounted on a 3x5 index card. And it's authenticated by PSA. Now, I mean, I could talk forever about, a guy like Lewis, but if you're watching this video, you probably already know a lot about him. And if you don't, look him up, man. Look him up. Held the heavyweight title longer than anybody in history. I think it was over 11 years and 8 months. Now, part of that was also due to World War II. That took up a few years of his prime, unfortunately. But he was definitely one of the greats, and did a lot for, African Americans back back before the Civil Rights Movement, back before Jackie Robinson came up with Brooklyn and everything like that. This man was really carving the path, back before really too many people were. And, only lost one fight in his prime, and that was actually to this man, Max Schmeling. Max Schmeling and Joe Louis had 2 fights, one in 1936, and Max Schmeling defeated Joe Louis, and that was a huge, huge upset. In 1937, the next year, Joe Louis defeats Jimmy Braddock, the Cinderella Man, for the title. 1938, sets up a second fight with Schmeling, and he just killed him. Joe Louis murdered him in the first round. But they really had 2 epic fights, and you got to think about something too. Now, Max Schmeling was not a Nazi by any means. He just happened to be living in Germany at that time. And him and Joe Louis actually later in life became really good friends. But during 1938, when the Nazi Party was getting bigger and bigger, everybody wanted Joe Louis to kick the shit out of Max Schmeling. Because, it was us versus them, This was World War II in the ring before World War II actually happened. And Joe Louis, that's when he really became an American hero, to say the least, And like I said, it's ironic that, afterwards these two became really good friends and were friends till Joe Louis passed away in, I think, 1981. But it's really cool to have both these great fighters in one frame. And actually, while I'm talking about them, I happen to have a ticket stub from their second fight. This is the one that Joe Louis won, from June 22nd, 1938 at Yankee Stadium. This is a piece that I always loved, having the ticket stub for what was probably the biggest fight ever. I mean, they say the world went quiet when this fight happened because everybody was either at the fight or listening on the radio. They said the streets were quiet. Everybody was wrapped around the radios waiting for this fight. And when Joe Louis won, I tell you what, there was some partying. There was some partying, to say the least. But I'm starting to get off track because, like I said, once you get me talking about some of these guys, I could talk forever. But in any event, Joe Louis, definitely one of the greatest heavyweight champions of all time, and well-deserving of number 1 on my list. So, Joe, Mr. Silverjackify, I really hope you enjoyed this video, brother. And that's going to be it for me. So I hope you guys enjoyed my top 5 boxing autographs. And as always, I will see you next time.